Hey, I'm Jeremy, and today I'd like to show you an auction game designed by Reiner Knizia, a famous German designer by the name of Strozzi. And you can see from the box, it doesn't look like much, but there's a lot of fun to be had in this little box. The game plays in about 60 minutes, maybe more like 45 minutes for between 3 to 6 players. They have it rated for ages 10 and up. I'll take a moment to show you the rules, and then I'll come back and give you my impressions on this auction game. Okay, so I've set up the board here for a 3-player game of Strozzi, and you can see a few features on the board. So there's this map of Italy, which is pretty superficial, honestly. It just shows the cities that these tracks correspond to. So 3 of these are considered port cities. There's Venice, where you will be shipping gold. There is Naples, where you'll be shipping cloth. And then there is Rome, where you'll be shipping these pots or spices. The 4th city here is Florence. That has a special function. I'll explain that in a moment. But it corresponds with scrolls as it's a good type. So the game also comes with player components to mark their progress on the track. Each player is going to get 3 of these these flags to claim ships, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. There's one that's a +1. There's one that is a goods flag, and then there's one that's a pirate ship flag, and I'll explain the significance of those in a moment. Then there's also going to be a stack of these bonus tiles. These are going to give you victory points potentially at the end of the game. There are 3 types of those. So there's science, there is, I suppose that's architecture, and art. So, and those will have a value on them, 1 or 2. And the ones that have a 2 don't have it, but the ones that have a 1 will also allow you to go up a good space of that type. So, for example, 1 cloth. Then finally, the other components are money that are just used to track victory points from round to round. You're allowed to keep those secret. Everything else would be open information. So the way that the game works is pretty easy. The first player, let's say it's red, will flip up the top card, and there's going to be a number of cards equal to the number of players times 3 plus 3. Since each player is going to be able to buy 3 ships during the game, or during the round rather, there'll be cards corresponding for that, and then 3 additional ones in case players pass. So they'll just flip over the top card, and then it'll have a number of features on it. And so this card here, it has 1 advancement on the scroll track, one choice of one of these bonus tiles, these culture tiles I suppose they would be called, and then it has a speed of 1, which will be important for end of the round scoring, and then it has 1 advancement on either gold, pot, or rugs. So you could the first player then will have an option to either bid or to pass on that. And the way the bidding works in this game is that in order to bid on it, you simply place one of your tiles on it. So, for example, if I wanted to bid on it, I could place that tile on it. If you place your pirate ship tile, you will automatically win that. Nobody can outbid you. You just get one of those per round, and it will just mean that you automatically claim that ship. If you place your +1 on it, it will modify the speed of the ship +1. So this would be counted as a 2-speed ship, and I'll explain the significance of that in a moment. But if you bid with that, every other player in clockwise order will have an option to outbid you by using their pirate ship. So the pirate ship would trump the +1, or it would also trump this flag, which is a goods flag. So this will allow you to advance on any of those 3 tracks an additional time, depending on which port you send the ship to. So let's just say that the red player bids with this, and the other 2 players pass. They don't use their pirate ship. That will mean that the red player has to assign this to one of the ports. So let's say they assign it to the purple port, the Naples. You'll place that down there next to Naples, and you'll have and I'll slide this over so you can see that better. You'll have a space, and you'll keep these ranked in order as ships come into the port. You're only allowed to assign 1 ship per port each round. So you'll be sending one to Rome, one to Naples, and one to Venice each round. Now, because this has a scroll on it, that will get rid of 1 advancement on the scroll track, and I'll explain that in a moment. Because it has that blue box on it, they get to claim one of these tiles. So let's say they take this art tile, that would be worth 1 point in art, which will be scored at the end of the game. And because it has this icon on it, they will get an advancement on the cloth. And now we evaluate the goods of the type, the goods that match the city where it was sent. So Naples specializes in cloth. It has a cloth on here, so they'll get 1 advancement. And then because they've played their goods token, any of those 3 goods types, they'll get an additional 1. So they'll get 1 more goods advancement. So red would be here at the 3 space on Naples after that. So then the next player in turn order, so that would be the blue player, will flip the next card. And they have the same decision to make. So this ship, just, for example, it shows a 6 on it, 2 cloth, and 2 pots. So let's say the blue player really wants that. They play their pirate ship. They are going to automatically claim that ship. And then if they choose to send it to Naples, they would put it in the port next to Naples above any numbered ship that is lower. So if there was already a 6 there, it would go behind the other 6, but since 6 is greater than 1, it goes up higher, which will matter at the end of the round. Now, because they claim this ship here, they don't have a scroll or they don't have a bonus tile, and actually another bonus tile should always flip out when 1 is taken, but they do have 2 advancements on the cloth track, so they would go up 2 here. And they have a faster ship in this port, which will be significant at the end of the round scoring. So then it would be the green player's turn. They would flip over a card, and they have another. They have a 6. It has a tile, and it has 2 goods on it. So let's say that they place their +1 on that. The other 2 players pass. The blue player has to pass because they've already used their pirate ship. Then if they choose to send this to Naples, which wouldn't necessarily be the best strategy, but let's just say they do, they will get to claim one of these tiles. So let's say they take the 1 tile with the carpet on it, which will give them 1 advancement. Another tile will come out. And then, since this speed is considered 6 + 1, they get to place this above the 6 that's already there. And then, it has no carpets, you'll notice. So they don't get any additional advancements because of that. They just ignore the other spaces for the other ports that they didn't go to. So, that is essentially what happens during a round, and you'll keep drawing cards until either the card deck runs out, which means players have passed more than 3 times collectively, or until everybody has used all of their sails, and that would trigger the end of the round. Then there's going to be a scoring, and I'll explain how the scoring works using this example. So at the end of each round, what you'll do is you'll evaluate 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place on each track. So here, red would be in 1st place, blue would be in 2nd place, green would be in 3rd place. They will get 5, 10, and 15 points each for being in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. If anybody advances their marker all the way up to here, they'll get this bonus at the end of each round. So 5, 10, or 15 points also for being high up on the chart. Let's say red was here and blue got 1 advancement. Because red was already on this space, blue would come to the right of red. And ties are always going to be broken from left to right. So that would be a tiebreaker. There's never a tie in the game. So then after you evaluate those tracks for each of the fields, you will then, including this one here in Florence, where red would get points for having advanced on the scroll track there, then you will look at the ships that are in each port. And they'll get 5, 10, and 15 points for 3rd, 2nd, and 1st place. So red would get 5 points, blue would get 10 points, and green would get 15 points. In a 3-player game, everybody's going to get points here because there's 3 ranked scoring. But in a 6-player game, and the game plays up to 6, not everybody will get points in every place. If you ever don't advance your piece from the starting position, you're not eligible for points on that track. After you score those, you will then see who is furthest ahead on the scroll track. That person will go first in the next round. You'll reshuffle all these cards, remove that, everybody gets their sails back. These will remain in place from round to round, so your advancement on the track will be cumulative. And then yeah, you'll shuffle all the cards back in together, remove a certain number of cards depending on how many players you're playing with, and then you'll begin the round again, starting with whoever's ahead on this track. This goes for 3 rounds. At the end of the 3rd round, you're going to evaluate these tiles. So over the course of the game, you're going to be collecting tiles such as these. So let's say red's gotten these, and blue got that, and green got that and that. So now you will simply look to see who has the most in each of the 3 types of culture. So you would start, for example, with architecture, and here red has 3, and green rather has 3. Again, ties are going to be broken based on advancement on this track, on the scroll track, and then those are going to reward double points. So 30, 20, and 10 instead of 15, 10, and 5. For each category for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So red would get 30 points, blue would get 20 points, green would get 20 points, and since blue has collected none, they would get 0 points in that category. Then you would look at art. Green has 2 to red's 1. They would get 30 points. Red would get 20 points. Again, blue would get none, but blue would get 30 points, whereas nobody would get other points for science because they are the only person who had collected these science tokens. So essentially, then you'll do that round scoring 3 times, that end game scoring once at the very end of the game. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game will be the winner. Okay, so that is how you would play Strozzi. The interesting thing about this game is that, although it's an auction game, because of the way that you bid using those sales instead of currency, you end up taking a lot of the computational headaches that come out of other auction games out of the equation. Now, Reiner Knizia, the designer of this game, has done that with some other games, like Raw, for example, uses just sun tiles to do your bidding, which does keep you from getting caught up in counting all of your money and whatnot. So it makes it for a more streamlined auction game than most. In this one, it's really interesting because you essentially have that one pirate ship, that one trump card that you could play for an entire round, and once you play that, you know that you're going to have to wait every other turn, so you really want to use that when it's especially beneficial for you. The other 2 special bonus tiles that you would use to bid, and all your bidding tiles have a special power, are really tactically interesting when to use those. So if you could just barely squeak ahead and get a faster ship into a port for bonus points, that's sometimes a really great use of the tile, even if that's not going to be exactly the good type that you're trying to collect. Also paying attention to that, the number of scrolls or the way that people are collecting the 3 culture tile types, makes it kind of hard to evaluate what the worth of a given ship is going to be, because you have to consider the scrolls, you have to consider the bonus tiles, you have to consider the goods types, and you have to consider the speed, and that's going to change essentially the values of those based on how far people are advancing on those tracks, on how many of those bonus tiles people have collected, and how many ships are at a given port. Since you're going to be sending a ship to each one of those ports, you essentially have to plan for that as well. So again, valuation becomes kind of tricky, but not in a strictly mathematical sense. It's really more of a reacting to other players type of valuation. So that's relatively unique. Now the game is somewhat dry, I guess, on the surface. It's a game set in Renaissance Italy, and you're just trading goods, and there's plenty of board games like that. But because of the unique auction mechanisms and the simplified nature of it, it plays really well, especially I think at the higher end of that player count. So 5 and 6 players, it's sometimes fine to find nice games that play in under an hour that are still pretty strategic for especially 6 players. And I think this really fits the bill. So I would recommend that you check out Strozzi. There's also a sister game called Medici, which I believe is coming back into print in the next year or so, which is equally good, I would say, but maybe a little bit more of a mathy game than this. So this is an auction game almost for people who aren't huge fans of auction players or auction games, and if that appeals to you, I suggest you check it out. So there we go. That's my take on Strozzi, and thanks for watching.